Good evening, Lowdown Nation. Um, Tonight is episode 18 of the Lowdown with Matt, and it is my pleasure to have with me Mr. Brian Honeycutt. He is the bass player for Lynchburg, Virginia's own A Day in Pop.
Can you hear me, Matt?
Okay, I can.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Yeah, we're okay. I think we're good now.
Yes.
I was having some issues on my end as well. So anyway, yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, all good.
Okay, okay, great, great. Anyway,
Is it bugging out again?
are you hearing that delay?
I don't hear a delay. Is it delaying for you?
It is. Yeah, I'm getting kind of an audio loop going, but I'll try to work with it here. Uh,
Okay.
anyway, um,
Hmm. Here, let me switch to this. Is that better?
yeah, it might be.
Okay.
Um, okay. Well, let's go ahead and try to just get started with the topic at hand here. Yeah.
Alrighty. I think I'm all set on my sides. All right. I don't. Things are acting up right now. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Well, uh, Brian, how long have you been playing bass?
So ever since middle school, about sixth grade, I started playing bass. So roughly 8 years now.
Okay. Um, have you taken lessons at any point, or have you been pretty much self-taught? How has that gone?
So I started playing guitar. I did guitar lessons through elementary school. When I picked up bass in middle school, most of it was self-taught, but I did play bass for my band's band, or like the school band and orchestra, all the way up through high school too. As I was a percussionist, so I kind of switched back and forth from playing electric bass and other percussion stuff.
Gotcha, gotcha. Do you play any other instruments besides bass?
Yeah, I play drum set majority of the time now. Recently, we've had kind of a switch of our band's lineup. I was the former bassist. We recently just moved me over to drums for the band. And I played all sorts of percussion throughout high school. I was in my school's drum line. Um, and I grew up learning guitar.
Okay. Um, well, as far as your bass playing goes, do you mostly gravitate toward fingerstyle or a pick, or is it kind of situational?
I can say it's situational. Sometimes you require a sound of a pick as it kind of gives you a different type of punctuation with the strings. I personally like to play fingerstyle. That's how I've always learned. And I'm quicker with it too. But it is kind of situational, depending on what the music involves. But when I'm just playing on my own, it's usually just fingerstyle.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, tell me about your current gear and setup. I know you've transitioned from bass to drums now, but,
Mhm.
you know, when you're playing, what do you play? What do you play through? Do you use any effects, that kind of thing?
So it all kind of starts off with a 1971 Fender Precision bass. It's got some mods. It has Seymour Duncan Steve Harris pickups and a custom wiring on it. And all that goes through a dark glass Alpha Omega Ultra pedal, which is where most of our tone shaping does come from. We use a little bit more of a punch type tone with grit on top. And the dark glass also gives us our direct in split and front of house split. So we use it to go through our in ears and also towards stage sound. Um, Normally, when we practice, we just use in ears, but for our stage tone, we use an Ampeg SVT Pro with a BBE sonic maximizer in the effects loop, and then two Ampeg cabs, an 8x10 and a 4x10.
Gotcha, gotcha. So do you, when you're playing bass, do you have any personal preference yourself between 4 and 5 string basses, or is it just, kind of whatever?
So for me, it's a little bit whatever. I personally find a lot of enjoyment playing six string basses. Um, for our type of music, it is a lot easier to use a five string. You can kind of keep, you don't have to tune as much. You can just kind of ride certain strings throughout the songs, and it does make gear switches so much easier, especially in between songs. But majority of the time, I do play a four string. And every once in a while, I do have a five string I like to play, but it doesn't get as much use as my four.
Gotcha, gotcha. In case you're wondering, if it seems like there's a bit of a delay between when you're speaking and when I'm responding,
Hmm.
I'm getting like this audio loop in my ear, and I'm
I
having trouble
gotcha.
determining what's what.
That's okay.
Um,
No worries. I understand.
so, um, so anyway, musicians tend to collect gear. Do you have anything really unique in your gear arsenal that you'd like to talk?
Not typically. My main bass is a four string Fender Thunderbird. I've had it 5 6 years now. It's been my go-to bass. And, it's a pretty standard bass, but I mean, I love how it sounds. It gets so much use. I like the feel of it. And I've really just never had any issues with it. And it always comes out sounding super clean, and super wide.
Okay. Um, so what would you say, Brian, are some of your main musical influences?
Whew. Well, what got me to start playing bass was I was a big fan of the Red Hot Chili Peppers growing up, so I really wanted to, be able to play like Flea. But
Mhm.
I've taken inspiration from various different artists. I really like throughout high school I played a lot of jazz bass, um, and so that kind of got me to really start shaping my own sound. I would listen to all these earlier like jazz bassists, look at how they play. I don't really have any names off the top of my head, but kind of like a mix of that and some of this kind of funk punk type style has really like motivated me to keep playing bass and keep with it.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, you mentioned Flea. Who are some of your other favorite bass players?
I gotta remember how to pronounce his last name. Uh, Chris Holenstone. Holenstone. I'm gonna embarrass myself trying to pronounce his name. The bassist from Muse. I've taken great inspiration out of.
Mhm.
Um, and then just local friends. Two friends I went to high school with. They also kind of motivated me to play more bass. One of the guys was named Conrad Borba. He plays bass for this band called Sheetrock, and he's a phenomenal bassist. Very well-rounded musician, along with one of my other buddies named Sean. Again, he grew up playing jazz throughout high school bands, stuff like that. And I was just like, I love their style, and that's just kind of what's like influenced me to keep going and keep playing the sort of stuff I play.
Gotcha. So going into the kind of the Wayback Machine here, what was the very first concert that you attended as a fan?
Whew. So funny enough, like my first real like concert attending as a fan was 2 months ago. I went to a Mom Jeans concert, and that was actually like my first production concert I've ever seen.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a really exciting experience, and now all that, like that's all I want to do. I'm scouring all over the internet for who's coming through Virginia, seeing if there's any bands that I want to see that are going to be around the area.
Very cool. Yeah, I figured out what was causing the audio loop, so I'm good to go now, which is
Okay,
nice.
sweet.
Yeah, it was. I actually had the Instagram tab had its volume on, and there was a bit of a delay there, so I was getting that audio plus the audio from here, and it was just
Oh wow,
it was just blowing my mind. But anyway,
always has you chasing something.
yeah. Like I said before we went live, technology is great until it isn't.
Yeah, it is.
But
Exactly.
so away from music, Brian, what are some of your other hobbies and interests?
I do a lot of rock climbing, indoor and outdoor. I'm kind of an outdoorsy person, especially growing up. I spent a lot of time outdoors. So I'll do like mountain biking. I do a lot of backpacking, day hikes. As a kid, we'd like to go cross country, go out to like Utah and Colorado and bike those trails. And I'm looking forward to be able to start climbing out there as well. Mainly that, and just video games. As any other kid would say, I'll play some video games here and there, but I really like to spend time outdoors and hanging out with people, and cars as well. I'm kind of a car freak, if you would like to say. Like tuning cars, working on them, stuff like that. Just tinkering guy.
That's cool. I'm going to jump over really quick to the Instagram tab and see if anybody has any comments or questions over there. We've got quite a few people joining. It looks like a really good turnout. Oh yeah, your band is on the Instagram tab saying it's The Cut.
Yeah, it is.
And so we're actually going to get into the section of this where we talk more about the band. And what I'm going to do, just to give people that aren't familiar with A Day in Pompeii sort of just a quick taste of what you guys sound like, I'm going to play about the first minute of the Love in Exile lyric video off of YouTube. So I'm going to share my screen, and we'll play about the first minute of that.
Good choice.
Anyway, like I said, for those who had not heard A Day in Pompeii, man, that is a great song. And like I said before we went live, you guys are blessed with some incredible singers.
That's right. Our lead vocalist, Anna, she does an amazing job on all of our tracks and even live. She still carries her sound through. Does a beautiful job. It brings chills to my skin.
So, so tell me a bit about A Day in Pompeii. You know, how long have you guys been together? How did the band form? Where did the name come from? I love the name, by the way. I'm a history buff, so.
Yeah, so band's been around for a little bit over a year. The concept started late January 2023. Since then, we've kind of had a revolving door trying to fill out our lineup. Our first single, Darker Nights, came out roughly middle of April of 2023, and then we've been slowly adding songs to our list ever since. Band name question got posed one day. If you could go back to any point in time and relive a moment without fear of dying or impacting the timeline, where would you go? And John, kind of the mastermind behind all of this, said, I wanted to spend the last day in Pompeii. And then
Oh,
just
that
kind of
is cool.
snowballed from there.
Absolutely. That is really neat. So, do you play in any other bands or side projects?
Kinda. I have one side project with all my high school buddies called Pit. We just go around, just do some jamming gigs, and we'll play covers, very small shows, just kind of for the fun of it. Other than that, Day in Pompeii is kind of what has my focus.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, you know, you've transitioned from bass to drums, but you know the bass players are typically in a partnership with the drummer in a band as the rhythm section. So, I
Mhm.
mean, tell about tell me about your experiences with that, both from the perspective of the bass player and now as the drummer. You know, how do you guys lock in with each other and that kind of thing?
Well, it it involves a super deep pocket that we have to fill. We do run clicks and backing tracks when we play, and that kind of what helps us really stay in locked. And we have a really strong emphasis on really that the bass and drums being super locked tight as possible, because without that bass and drums, like the music would just kind of fall apart. So as a bass player, I'd always be looking to whoever is drumming, making sure I'm on time, making sure all of our hits are the same. And as a drummer, my main focus is tempo, tempo, tempo. Make sure everything's hitting at the right spot. I'm not dragging. I'm not rushing. Nothing's getting blipped out of anywhere. Really sticking to these clicks.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, tell me about the songwriting process within A Day in Pompeii. Is there a primary writer in the band, or is it a collaborative thing? How has that gone?
So our lead guitarist Jonathan May, he's not a big collaborator. He has written probably the majority of everything we have posted. And so really what he takes is he'll get a fairly good idea of what he wants something to sound like, where he's going with it, and it just kind of keeps going from there as he's writing. Because it's not really about writing a song; it's rather more about painting a soundscape for the listener. I
Gotcha.
really want to draw in attention, all the little bits and details and stuff. He kind of, I don't know how he does it, but he's got some master plan in his head to where just get him behind some instruments and he'll get it done. It's amazing what he does.
So, really, a man with a gift and a vision.
Yes, exactly right.
So, is A Day in Pompeii anything approaching a full time thing, or you know, if not, tell me about your day job.
So it's not a full-time thing right now. I definitely think we are all looking forward to it being and trying to work towards it being a more permanent, full-time I guess say job. But right now it's kind of like after work and stuff, we'll all meet up and practice. We haven't been able to play as much as we'd like just because we're still trying to fill up our lineup, and figure out what works best for the group, what gets us moving in the direction we all want to be moving. Um, Currently, I am not working. I was in a pretty severe car accident and haven't been able to return to work yet. So I've been unemployed for the past 3 months.
Well, hopefully as you continue to recover from that, good things will happen.
Thank you.
So let me take another peek over at Instagram and just see what we got going here. Oh, Day in Pompeii is just saying, thanks for the love and appreciate the compliments. Well, man, you guys are really have a bright future ahead of you. You guys have a great sound and some great songs.
Mm-hmm.
So what, Brian, what's the most interesting experience that you've had playing live thus far?
So we played a gig back in the end of, I want to say February. I'm sorry. For Lynchburg Gothic League, and it was probably the coolest experience I've had ever playing a gig. I've never seen a bar packed so tight, and everybody just loved the music. It was explosive in there. Everybody was feeling it out. It just felt so nice, like putting on a performance that everybody enjoyed. Everybody was there to listen to what we were putting out.
That's cool. That's cool. That had to really be a neat feeling.
Yeah, all of us came out of it with big smiles on our faces. The crowd reaction to it was just phenomenal, and it just really kind of got all of our spirits up and rolling again. Like, all right, this is working. Let's keep pushing. We want this again.
Awesome. So, what is your favorite "A Day in Pompeii" song to play live?
On bass, I'd say "Hear Me Now." "Hear Me Now" is a lot of fun. We have a couple other unreleased songs that I like to play, that we play live, but are still working on or in the process of recording and getting them produced. Uh, "Love in Exile" is a very tough but fun song to drum to.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate the challenge it gives me. It takes a lot of foot coordination almost. You gotta be super quick. I don't understand how John was able to just that recording he took was just spot on. But I think "Love in Exile" probably is one of my favorites.
Very cool. So, before you go on live, do you have any pre-show traditions, any things that you try to do consistently before you go on live? Like using the metaphor of athletics, some like basketball players will unlace their shoes and relace them before they go out for a game. Do you guys do anything consistently before you go on?
Tune. We make sure we are tuned. We are big tone snobs. So we make sure everything's tuned right. We double check, we triple check, we go through, we take very good, big pride in our tone, as well as we don't want any blips. So it's a lot of time of just double backing on ourselves, making sure everything's ready for the show to run, making sure all of our connections are working, make sure everything's plugged in right, stuff is going where it needs to be, and our stage sound is making sure what the crowd is hearing is what we want them to hear.
Gotcha. So, so your hometown is Lynchburg, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite thing about Lynchburg?
There's a bunch. I definitely say we have a nice mix of culinary influences coming in. There's this taco truck across from where I used to work. Best best Mexican you can get in town. We have some really good spots to go out and eat. So, and I'm a big eater, so I like having a good spot where I know I'm consistently getting good food. It's kind of warms my heart a bit.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So tell me about the music scene up in Lynchburg.
It's all over the place. Um, we mainly see a lot of like small punk bands that play kind of all these like house shows and stuff around Lynchburg. Nothing big and crazy. You know, you have your average like cover bands. Those are the ones that are usually playing out like all the bars and stuff on Friday night. Not really going to bring anything truly new to the scene. There's
Right.
a couple small bands that have formed out of Lynchburg. Like, you ever heard of the band Modest Mouse?
Yeah.
They're from Lynchburg.
Really? I did
Yep.
not know that. Yeah.
Yeah, they went to EC Glass High School.
Huh.
Uh, there's a band that one of my buddies in that I just love called Sheetrock 2. All of them born and raised from Lynchburg, and they're all just phenomenal musicians. So we do really we pump out a lot of good musicians. There's a lot of talent in Lynchburg, just not all of it gets the spotlight, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, here is an interesting question. I've asked this on every one of these that I've done, and I always get some interesting answers. And you're a fairly young guy, but if you could give, knowing everything that you know now, if you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Metal music isn't that scary. Like in middle school, I was like, oh, I'm never gonna listen to metal music. It's like, oh, I would never touch that. Yada yada yada. I get to high school, and then I start hearing about this, and it's like my brain explodes. Like, this is all I want to do now.
Yeah.
I wish I could have gotten into it earlier and worked on my skills for it earlier. Because I would be able to would love to be able to contribute more to this sound. I wish I knew more about it. Otherwise, just keep practicing. Practicing is like the biggest thing for me.
Absolutely. So, you had mentioned a couple of other bands, but do you have any suggestions for any other up and coming bands to check out, or possibly to reach out to do one of these live stream chats?
Sheetrock,
Sheetrock, okay.
I love them. They're good buddies of mine. They have a great sound. They're fantastic musicians, and they really kind of bring something new to like kind of the jam rock scene. It's something you just wouldn't hear. You go to their shows and stuff around Richmond. It's just really it's something new. It's a very new style, and they kind of created something on their own. And it's just amazing to hear. Every time I go, I have an amazing time listening to them.
Awesome, awesome. I'll reach out to you on Instagram, within the next day or so, and hopefully you can get me connected with them, and I'll take it from there.
For sure.
That's awesome. So something else that we've done in every one of these, and it's really been kind of fun, is we let the person who is currently in the hot seat pose a question for a future guest. And so Justin Stupplebean, who was the bass player from a band up in Albany, New York called the Phoenix and the Raven, uh, posed this question, and that is, what have you done to make your tone truly your own in terms of tweaks or anything specific that you've done to make your sound really Brian Honeycutt's?
Yeah. Personally, not a whole lot. I kind of when we're playing live as a band, at least, John has just this fantastic image of how he wants to sound. Like when I'm playing at home, I always like to mess around with amp. I just like creating new sounds. But when we're playing, we take a lot of pride in trying to develop a tone that's different. And I really believe that John has. He spent a lot of time in his basement tuning and tweaking his drums and how they're mic'd. Guitar tones, using different pickups, bridges, strings, different wiring. He's spent a lot of time developing the sound that is A Day in Pompeii.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we just take a lot of pride in that. And from a bass point too, is like the bass has to fill in that low end. There's that lower voice that the bass kind of takes over in the background. So we keep it nice and thick. And we try to provide like enough support for the rest of the sound that's resting on this nice blanket, you know, nothing interfering, no clash, but it still has that kind of like grit, that edge to it that makes you want to keep moving.
Gotcha. So now, do you have a question that you would like to ask the next person in the hot seat?
Well, I've been thinking about this one. This is kind of a difficult one. I mean, my thing is like, I still don't understand how I got to playing bass. Bass is kind of like a weird instrument for people to pick up. You know, people hear songs like, oh, I want to pick up guitar so I can learn these songs. But like, what really gets you interested in bass? What kind of makes you obsessed with it? What makes you want to keep learning and keep playing and keep showing off on bass? I think that would probably be the biggest question to pose to future musicians.
Gotcha. That's actually a really good question. I mean, I'm a converted guitarist myself. I spent the majority of my life playing guitar, and about 4 years ago, my son took up guitar and absconded with all my guitar gear. And he and my wife surprised me with a bass for Christmas that year, and I'd never touched a bass, let alone tried to play one until then.
Yeah.
And I discovered, just noodling around with it, that really I'd been a bass player all these years and just never knew it. and I actually really have gotten so I enjoy it more than I ever did playing normal guitar. So
Yeah.
it's all good.
I agree. I always like growing up when I started playing guitar too. I was just like bass always seems like it's overlooked in a sense. It's usually not like at the front of people's sound. It's not really what people want you to hear. It's just supporting the rest of what people want to hear. And I mean that's an amazing thing we do with our music is we want you to hear the bass. We want you to feel it. You know, we want it to punch you. We really want everything to be heard. And as a bass player too, I always, when we would do anytime we play live at all, like being able to hear the bass, hear the melodies that's coming out of the bass, really hear the potential that it has as an instrument. It's kind of like my biggest thing. Like anytime I'm playing, jamming, stuff like that, the bass has its own melody too. It's not just rhythm.
Gotcha. Well, I looked around and I tried to find as much of y'all's social media as I could and put it in the ticker at the bottom of the screen. But aside from the Instagram, the YouTube, and the TikTok, do you guys have any other social media that you'd like to hype?
We're on Facebook too, I believe. And honestly, I think that's all the platforms we're on right now. The main big ones are just Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. And obviously, all of our music's pretty much everywhere. You can stream music, Spotify, Apple Music. You look us up, you'll find us.
Gotcha. So, you mentioned that you've got some stuff that hasn't been released yet. Can you talk about any of that, or is that something you're kind of keeping under wraps? Can you give any hints as to what's coming?
It's a new sound. It still has that classic Day in Pompeii punch, but what I think John really does with his music is all of it is it brings something new to the table anytime you listen to one of his songs. They're all completely different. They still kind of that rock metal style, but it's still got that, you know, what I'm going to say is classic Day in Pompeii tone. It still keeps strong to what we believe in with how we want it to sound. But it's just a little bit different. And then you can hear through our 3 singles right now, they all have like a different feel to them. And we continue that with the other songs we're playing right now too. It keeps you interested.
Awesome. So, do you have any upcoming shows or anything that you'd like to hype?
Unfortunately, not right now. We don't have any set dates. We are planning on playing towards the end of the summer and into the fall. Right now, we're still kind of rebuilding our lineup, and we don't want to set any permanent dates yet until we're confident we can give the crowd what they need.
Gotcha. I'm going to take another quick look over at Instagram just to see what's going on over there. Let's see here. Lady Candace says she's looking forward to more songs.
Oh yeah, they're coming.
Yep. So anyway, we've gotten pretty much toward the end of things here. So Brian, thank you for your time, and thank you for coming on and letting us know about you and also about A Day in Pompeii. And for those of you that have been watching live, thank you. For those of you that are going to be watching this on a replay, thank you for that as well. If you like what we've got going here, definitely spread the word. Give me a follow on any of the platforms. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. It's all in the ticker there. And this is just really a place to celebrate new music and the people that are making it. And it's just this has just really been a lot of fun. And like I said, Brian, I'll be in touch in the next day or so with details on the podcast version of this getting uploaded, and I'll be editing out pieces of this to go up on TikTok and some other places. So anyway, thank you all. Everybody have a great night and a safe weekend, and I'll be live again Sunday night at 7 p.m. Talking to Wyatt Dempster, who is the bass player for a metal band up in Boone, North Carolina called Quadrant. I'm excited to talk to him. But anyway, thank you, Brian, and everybody have a great night.